Hey everyone, today there's some concerning stuff to go over as some companies are still dumping DEI agenda pushing in their games in the wake of the mass exodus of players rejecting it completely and others are doubling down. From Warhammer and Pathfinder devs calling conservatives fascists and to leave their games and hobbies altogether, to even CD Projekt Red CEO who I notoriously fought with publicly only to expose him, and now everyone knows too, and he's now doubling down again, and it's honestly kind of sad to see at this point. There's a lot to go over here today, but first let's start with Warhammer. So in this case, this is a CRPG developer by the name of Paizo that has found themselves getting the ire of Gamergate 2 as of late. You may know them as the home of such games as Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, as well as more recently Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. Paizo is deeply entrenched as a company within the classic RPG or CRPG space, as well as the tabletop scene too. Like I said, they've worked on Warhammer related products for years, and now things have gotten, well, it's not good to be real with you. Shout out to Grums, by the way, for compiling a lot of this. He's getting heat for stuff lately, and it's great to have someone like him on our side, so he found this, let's get into it. This all surrounds a certain game director named Jason Bulmahn. He is cited as a director of games at Paizo and is the creator of the Pathfinder series. I'm not going to debate whether this guy has the chops or not when it comes to creating games of quality, because objectively speaking, based on the reviews and player feedback, Jason here knows clearly how to make video games that review well at least. Do not harass this man or anyone else in this video. Honestly, more than anything, I think what I want to do here is hopefully get Jason himself to watch this so that he can understand something. Which is that by continuing to cater to these insane activists, he's just going to eventually get himself eaten whole as well in the process. And clearly, he doesn't need to do this, so here's the lore. Jason Bulmahn was Me Too'd back in 2021. Which means that he was accused of stuff by women in the workplace that he was using his power and such within his position to get stuff out of them. If you're keeping up with that Neil Gaiman case right now, it's like that, but nowhere near as bad. Did you know that Neil Gaiman had female employees kissing his poop? I'm not kidding, by the way, that's real crazy, dude. Anyway, back to Rogue Trader and Pathfinder over here with Jason. So back in 2021, he was accused of things and here's what he said. Earlier this week, some troubling allegations came out against Paizo, some specifically directed at me. In light of all of this, I feel that I owe everyone an explanation. To that end, I have prepared a statement and am happy to clarify as necessary. He had a much longer statement that I will now read for you all, and I quote, "Hey there everyone, I know that many of you follow me here and on other social media sites for news and insight about games. And frankly, that is not what I am going to be talking about here today. Earlier this week, I was accused of doing some pretty heinous things in my role at Paizo, and at first, I thought that talking about them would lend them credence, but it has become clear that my silence on this matter is not productive and may be causing distress, so let's talk about the accusations. Before I begin, let me just say that this is not about saving face, far from it. My reputation and standing are important to me, but not today. I want to ensure that anyone who feels that I have wronged them understands that I am sorry and I would like to make amends. Now, the accusations claim that I harassed several of my female co-workers, hitting on many of them, specifically that I propositioned Jessica Price. In April 2015, after a late night of beer, I did ask her out on a date via Messenger. We were friends at the time and working closely together for an upcoming charity tournament. This was a mistake on my part, and I promptly retracted the invitation and apologized the next morning. I understand how this sort of advance is unacceptable, and I regret having done so. As for hitting on other creative department co-workers, I do not recall having done so. I try to keep a friendly relationship with all the folks at Paizo, and it is possible that this might be seen as flirting. I don't think it was, but my perception of an interaction does not dictate what the other person feels or experiences. I am taking steps to evaluate how my interactions with coworkers can be improved and how they are seen in the workplace. The accusation further states that my working relationship with Jessica deteriorated after this point, and that is true. While I think it is fair to say that part of it was due to this mistake, a greater part in my mind had to do with inner workings at Paizo, during an era that left me feeling like my work and my department were being undermined and delayed for other priorities. Again, this is not a fair way to treat coworkers, and in retrospect, I regret not working harder to see other points of view and work within the goals of the department. By the time of her departure, we hardly spoke, and I am sure that did not make her job any easier. In the years since, I have taken a hard look at those times and made changes to the way I work with other teams to ensure that we are all pulling together towards a common purpose. I still struggle with this at times, but I want to be better. Next, there was an accusation that I sent salacious images to a woman in the industry. In my years of dating, I have had a number of intimate correspondences with my partners. I have always believed these to be mutual and wanted, but I cannot know that now with 100% certainty. Please know that if I ever cross a boundary that I'm deeply ashamed and regretful. I am here to state right now that I do not condone such non-consensual behavior. No one should have to endure that kind of harassment. No person is named in this allegation, and no one in my past has indicated to me that I was out of line, so I am at a loss as to how to make this right. I will say this, if I have behaved inappropriately in any way towards someone, I would like to know, I would like to apologize, and if possible, work to make things right. Finally, there is an allegation that my hiring practices do not promote diversity and that in a recent search, I disregarded our best practices in favor of an internal promotion. This is categorically false. In the most recent hiring round, after encouraging diverse voices to apply, the resumes were sorted based on their experiences with our game or similar experiences in the industry. Those who met the requirements were sent a design test. These tests were then graded blindly, passed through HR, who stripped them of identifying marks and randomized them, and then brought them to the team for evaluation. After we decided who to interview, the names were then revealed. After an exhaustive process, it was clear that we had a candidate internally that was a better fit for the position. I want more diverse voices in games, and I'm immensely proud of the work being done by the folks in the creative department to bring those voices to the table. I hope to add an even wider variety of voices in the future, but this last round of hiring did not give us that opportunity. So where does this leave us? I think this covers the charges leveled at me, but I also know that words are not necessarily going to be enough. I do not believe myself to have acted in the way described, but it is pretty damn hard to prove a negative that I did not do a thing. Recent events have shaken my faith in the direction of the company, but I am dedicated to using my position to push for better policies and accountability. I want to share my love of games and my passion for the industry with all of you, but these things are more important. We need to get them right before we get back to the fun, end quote. So that was a lot to unpack there, but Jason reveals that he hit on a female coworker and asked her out on a date, then the next day retracted his offer and she decided to accuse him. But before we believe all women, as Me Too would want us to believe, there's context missing here as always. The woman that he names in this piece is Jessica Price. If you read her Twitter profile, it states, game producer, writer, editor Howling Maynard fired from ArenaNet and Paizo for refusal to act like I'm men's property. I won't play demur for you, block often. So she claims that she was fired from not only Paizo, but also ArenaNet too for not willing to be men's property, which is weird. ArenaNet, by the way, that's the Guild Wars 2 people, so of course having her claim that she was pushed to become the property of man, well, I had to now go look at this Guild Wars 2 story, because who are we kidding? We got her, right? So in 2018, Jessica Price, alongside another writer named Peter Fries, were fired from ArenaNet for fighting with customers publicly, which of course hampered ArenaNet's public image and caused strife in the community, which we all know can lead to loss of sales, rejection of product, all of that. This story goes deep, dude, and yes, it will all connect to the Warhammer Pathfinder devs again, I promise. Jessica detailed an over 20 tweet long summary about how she writes characters in games. Then a streamer named Doror, who I've never heard of until right now, said, really interesting thread to read, however, allow me to disagree slightly. I don't believe the issues lie in the MMORPG genre itself, as your wording seemingly suggests. I believe the issue lies in the constraints of the Living Stories narrative design. Of course, this didn't make Jessica happy, where she would then reply, today, in being a female game dev, allow me, a person who does not work with you, explain to you how you do your job. She then continued to call people names like asshats and started to project her insecurities almost immediately, according to the article, claiming that because she's worked in games for a decade, she is above criticism over others that haven't, and that if you haven't worked in games, you have no right to tell her what to do or give her any constructive feedback. It's like a chef getting mad at a customer for saying their food is cold or not cooked to their liking. Sure, they may not be as skilled as you when it comes to cooking the food, but their money and person are what keeps you in your role going. Would it not be beneficial to at least listen instead of immediately lashing out like this? But the tweet that got Jessica fired was where she said this, I'm not on the clock here, I'm not your emotional courtesan just because I'm a dev. Don't expect me to pretend to like you here. And then she was fired. So she openly admitted to not liking the player base, punching down at them, and saying their opinions have no meaning because they're not a narrative designer like she is. She says further in the article, which is also an interview, that she has always been outspoken and was personally fired by Mike O'Brien, the co-founder of ArenaNet, who told her that she needs to learn to keep her emotions in check and stop running her mouth at the slightest criticism. Of course, she didn't like that at all, claiming as a female dev she has to face more harassment than anyone else, and that she was not willing to budge in terms of allowing her personal thoughts to not be spoken through her professional avenue. Mike O'Brien, the co-founder, denounced both Jessica and Peter Fries, who, tried to protect Jessica and agree with her. And basically, O'Brien said in a lengthy post on the ArenaNet forums, which I will spare us all and not read it, but pretty much he just says their attacks on the community were misguided and do not reflect the team at ArenaNet in any way. Jessica did claim in another interview with Polygon about a week after being fired that ArenaNet never told her during her interview that she would need to check her identity at the door and be a different person, and that she was always outspoken about her beliefs and how players need to shut up more and let devs do the talking. So now that we know who this Jessica Price is pretty vividly now, this is the woman who allegedly claimed that Jason over there at Paizo, who worked on stuff like Pathfinder and of course Warhammer Rogue Trader, being another pillar of the company, that all of this stuff just kind of snowballed. And as Jason said in his statement, he retracted his date offer to Jessica almost immediately, yet she felt like what he did was bad enough to want to get him fired, and immediately used the situation to start up a sting to get Jason removed from the company, where she was yet again fired as well. The whole point of why I'm telling you all of this is, firstly, there's a lot of nuance to the story. And secondly, it's clear that the woman who tried to Me Too the Pathfinder creator has a tendency to attack male co-workers specifically and try to use her position as a woman to get them removed. Case in point, if you meet someone like Jessica in your workplace, these are the kinds of people you never want to hang out with and only speak to on working hours, and just leave it at that. Because if you even breathe wrong in their direction, they'll claim that you tried to do things, and they will blacklist you to veil themselves in victimhood status. Imagine someone like Jessica Price in a position of power. It would become really bad really quickly. She might not think that, but based on what I can see her, she seems like she would fit right in with someone like Sweet Baby, if I'm being honest. Oh my god, so this now brings us back to Jason Bulmahn, the Paizo game director and home of the Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader games and Pathfinder. Jason has stirred the flames again, but now when I tell you these next parts, it will have way more added context as to why he could be saying what he's saying. In 2020, which was found by Grums, Jason said this: "Gatekeeping in the TTRPG space is ridiculous. Our hobby is far too small to exclude anyone, no matter their experience or interest level. If you play games, you are a gamer. If you make games, you are a game designer. If you like games, you are welcome here." Which was fair enough, right? Tabletop games are a niche audience. He did say this before Baldur's Gate 3 came out, so his comments were even more valid than that too. This then brings us finally to the fascist comments here, which sparked all of this in the here and now. So, J.D. Vance, yes, the Vice President of the United States of America, claimed that he was a big fan of Pathfinder. And well, Jason Bulmahn caught wind of this and said in response, "If Vance has played Pathfinder, I want him to send his books back. No space for fascists in our game." And there it is. Jason, why do you do this, man? You realize what you've just done, don't you? America has been overwhelming with its support of Trump and Vance. The Dems lost big time, and your bright idea as a game director of Pathfinder and being aligned with stuff like Warhammer 40k of all things is to do this. You realize now that anyone who is conservative, which based on those votes is a huge part of America, will read this and see it and never want to support Paizo, Pathfinder, or Rogue Trader ever again due to it. You can't be out here calling conservatives fascists with no evidence or reason, and this isn't even Games Workshop's fault, dude, so don't boycott Games Workshop because of this. This is Paizo, and Paizo alone. Like I said, the reason why I gave you guys that exhaustive amount of information prior to this bombshell was because I wanted to ensure that we had all the context provided before we got to the here and now. Jason clearly was a victim of Me Too, and was also, like he said himself, being attacked for not hiring people based on diversity, but instead hiring people on the things that really mattered, which were of course merit and talent, as you should obviously. But it's very clear that between then, which was 2021, and now in 25, Jason has to some degree bent the knee, so to speak, to a dying cult-like agenda in order to protect his position at Paizo. And now claiming in his now deleted comment that JD Vance and conservatives are fascists for supporting Trump in a time where plenty of companies, like Facebook, Amazon, and more, are dumping their entire DEI departments and flushing out the swamp, so to speak, to seem more conservative on the surface, that your bright idea here was to attack the overwhelming majority to appease people who will hate you anyways. Like, Jason, you know that you almost lost your position because you clearly made a mistake speaking to Jessica Price, who is in some way an activist when it comes to believing all women, and I wouldn't be surprised if she was also pro-diversity, equity, and inclusion too. You literally almost got swallowed alive by these people, and instead of rejecting them because they showed you who they were, when they smelled your blood in the water, your bright idea is to cater to them now? Why are you doing this, man? I really hope he sees this video. Because I don't hate Jason or anything like that. I don't hate Paizo, and I'm not going to tell people to boycott them or something. Because in my opinion, there's still time to fix this. There's been an awakening of common sense over the entire world since Trump won. And Jason, if you're watching this, there's still time to reject these freaks and be the game director that you've always been. There's no need for this. Don't call people fascists or attack them. I don't want to cancel you, dude. Had I only seen that one tweet and had no other context, yeah, you would be an enemy for sure. But I, and everyone who's watched this video, now knows your story. I know how you were almost destroyed internally by the same people you shed blood with when making these games. Why, and I think I speak for all of us, are you still pretending to be their ally anymore? They hate you, dude. They want you gone. They already tried to do that for 2 different reasons, man. Stop this before it gets worse. I know you deleted the tweet, but dude, you need to just come out and state that I won't let activists take me down. The community can still be here for you. There's millions of fans of RPG games that are eagerly wanting great games that don't talk down to them. Hell, I just did a video about the Lords of the Fallen guys, for example, and how they have completely thrown away DEI from their games, and people are really happy about it. Their CEO went on Twitter recently and just straight up asked the community to decide whether CI games refers to gender and their character creators going forward as male and female or body type A or B, and look at these results. Yeah, I'm thinking we're back, fellas. You don't need to pretend anymore. You don't have to dance for these woke lunatics if you don't want to. It's clear that they bring nothing but devastation and want to ruin everything in their wake. If Jessica Price had her way, we would all be muzzled, censored, and be eating whatever sludge she and others like her make. But we don't need to do that. The future is ripe for the taking, and you're standing there with one foot in the grave out of fear, when you don't have to be. I mean, you're not even living by your own tenets. You said this back in August 2024. Tolerance is a social contract. Those who do not accept it and embrace it are not protected by it. We are inclusive, but not of those seek to divide and drive others away based on their gender, sexuality, or ethnicity. Please step back and think on this. It is not up for debate. So you want to be protective and inclusive of people based on all of this stuff. But you draw the line at ideology and political alignment and have a hard cutoff point where you apparently stand. Dude, all you're going to be doing is pulling Paizo into this war out of fear of not pissing off some people who would love to get rid of you so they can take your position anyways. And then they'll just forget that you ever worked there to begin with, and once you're gone from the company, they'll take your Pathfinder series and slowly but surely just mutate it into a woke monster version of itself. And then when you grow old and die, they'll release statements in future Pathfinder books where people you never worked with will claim that you were sexist and racist, and that your contributions to this series or Rogue Trader or anything really was actually not that important at all, and that they should denounce you in every way, even though there wouldn't be the thing that they're taking control of if you hadn't made it in the first place. When are you and others who are clearly talented going to realize that this is about killing what you worked decades to build? Because they hate you deep down in their hearts, no matter how many opportunities you give them or how much you sacrifice in their honor. It will never be enough for activists. You could give them the world, and they would complain that you forgot to give them the stars and the moon as well. You can't negotiate with these people on anything. How do I know? My entire channel is like a museum of examples of why doing this leads to annihilation, man. So I'm giving you one chance, Jason, before the broader Gamergate 2 community starts voting with their wallets. Retract your all supporters of JD Vance or fascist comment right now, or I can't help you when the storm comes. So it's up to you to decide what you want to do here, but that's the story of Pathfinder and Rogue Trader's Paizo devs who are claiming anyone who supports JD Vance and by extension Trump or conservative ideology, to be fascist that must be removed. A horrible precedent that will undoubtedly be disastrous in the coming months and years if they keep this up. Now let's quickly finish with CDPR from Fandom Pulse. Gamers torch CD Projekt Red CEO for hiring woke activists as he denies company works with Sweet Baby Inc. In case you don't know, I already a few months back exposed CDPR for being full of DEI nonsense. Clearly that info was spread because now the CEO of CDPR can't escape this whenever he posts literally anything. Michael Nowakowski, the CEO, said that about 100 devs from Witcher 3 are working on Witcher 4, then a user would reply. I love how they keep pushing the word that they still have staff who worked on their previous Witcher titles like we don't know they lost the prime meat from the bone. They also don't want to openly tell you about those Sweet Baby Inc. employees working for them now, Michael would reply. We are not working and never worked with Sweet Baby, never even heard of them until recently to be honest. Also, we have not lost prime meat as you put it. Well, that's not true and you know it, Michael. You guys hired Mary Kenny of Insomniac, who worked with Sweet Baby Inc. directly, publicly, and defended them as well, and is now working on the sequel to Cyberpunk that is codenamed Orion. You know what Sweet Baby is, you just want to act like you don't, and then they try to act like they don't know what DEI is. When, like I already said already, I exposed them that they have an entire website just full of DEI policies on CDPR's website that you can go look up right now, which by the way even has internship programs for women only, not men, which isn't very inclusive. As one user puts it, never even heard of them till recently to be honest. Nobody buys it. Stop insulting people with that kind of statement. You have literally a full disclosed DEI company and you explicitly have people who are fans of Sweet Baby Inc. But it was actually Savvy's comment that was a big oof moment, and she said, so the former people who left to form their own game studio, to be clear, were not prime meat. Yeah, so when this video goes live, there will be an official trailer released for Blood of the Dawnwalker, which is a new open world vampire action RPG being made by a company called Rebel Wolves. That new studio is being spearheaded and ran by the former director of Witcher 3, who left obviously between then and now. So according to the CEO of CDPR, someone like the director of their most popular and successful game both financially and critically was not prime meat in their eyes. Okay there, buddy. You guys lost over 11 directors and department leads by 2021 already. There were around 200 or more devs on Witcher 3 alone. So half of the team that made your best game are now gone, alongside the people who did the more important tasks involved with it. Look, I'll stay skeptical about Witcher 4, but I'm not instilled with much hope to be fair. CDPR also hired someone named Cian Mayer, I'm probably saying that wrong, who openly stated that they want to punch gamers, but I'm sure Michael had no idea of this either. This guy just seems to not know things about his company conveniently. Cian Mayer, by the way, is the franchise and lore designer over at CDPR, a very important role all things considered. And all of this is not a good look. As Flash put it, why does your lore designer hate and want to punch gamers? You don't work with Sweet Baby, but you sure do hire some questionable people. And that's the thing, right? There's a lot of weird WTF things happening at CDPR where they aren't outright working with Sweet Baby, but there's weird coincidences that tie them to these things all the same. Also, don't forget they want to make Witcher 4 be about Ciri's place as a woman in that world. Great. Can't wait for all the evil men and good women tropes like every other Western game. Look, I hope Witcher 4 is great, I do, but at this point, I'm not very confident, and every time I see something new happen or get revealed about CDPR, the more I just wince at what's going on over there. But hiring Sweet Baby activists and I want to punch gamer devs is not a good look no matter what. Well, at least the CDPR CEO hasn't called anyone a fascist yet, but at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if that were to happen, let's be real. I got into a lot of hot water when I said that Ciri got hit with a DEI stick, which I still stand by the way. And I am just overly worried about CDPR and that it has gone down this DEI path and that it will destroy everything that they worked for. Oh well, I guess if they end up imploding, that Rebel Wolves can then be considered the new CDPR anyways, since many of the key talent that has left the company ended up working there. But that's what I got today. The Warhammer Pathfinder company's game director is calling conservatives fascists while bending his knee to activists, and CDPR is, like always, just giving me a headache and causing me to sigh every time they speak. I really want CDPR to turn things around, man. Don't boycott them or anything yet anyways, but keep them accountable always. Okay, that's enough talking. Thank you for watching, subscribe, thanks to my patrons and members, and I'll see you guys in the next one.